Technically, the final day of the 49ers offseason and a ton of news, including Brandon Aiyuk's former personal wide receivers coach saying exactly what I've been saying for months. TJ Houshmandzadeh is certain that Brandon Aiyuk is done. Done with professional football. And for those of us who have been watching Brandon Aiyuk's actions instead of his words, well, that has been clear for quite some time. Other news for the 49ers involves George Kittle. He and Kyle Juszczyk headed down to Panama to the Stem Cell Institute. George Kittle's got a shot to be back week 1, which would be downright miraculous considering the fact that the original timeline had him coming back from the Achilles injury in November. Maybe these stem cell guys down in Panama City should deserve some of the credit if George Kittle is indeed back. The video that he and Kyle Juszczyk posted from Panama was really interesting. These athletes, they're going all over the world now for some very, very top-notch treatment. Christian McCaffrey has gone all the way to Germany. There's a famous doctor, they call him Dr. Hans out there in Germany. Eric Armstead, former 49er now with Jacksonville, has also visited him in Germany. He's based in Munich. Back to George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk, because this video from Panama is of utmost importance to the 49ers tight end room, where I think there still are major questions. Maybe the biggest question mark of the entire 49ers offense, the unit that has a chance to be the very best in the league. Luke Farrell, who's the 49ers' top blocking specific tight end, they signed him to be that in 2025, posted a workout video the other day, but we all know that Farrell was uninspiring in 2025. He's going to have to take a step forward for the 49ers offense to get what it wants at that particular position. In fact, Mike and I have been talking a lot about this. We think that it is not out of the question that the 49ers ultimately try to trade for Charlie Woerner, an old friend, here in 2026. Woerner still with the Atlanta Falcons. And of course, we have discussed Jesse Bates III, the safety, quite a bit when we project forward to the trade deadline. I still want to see what San Francisco actually does at the safety position, though, and if it involves Upton Stout, since Raheem Morris seems to have talked about that already. Maybe the 49ers have a few creative tricks up their sleeves. But I think that when it comes to the blocking tight end position, the 49ers have not been shy in asserting that the best player that they've had in that spot under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch has been Charlie Woerner. They got him on a 4-year rookie deal starting in the 2020 season, 6th-round pick out of Georgia. And then they were unable to keep him because the Atlanta Falcons were willing to pay him a significant amount of money, about $4 million per year in free agency. The year after Charlie Woerner left, the 49ers were like, man, we really wish that we had somebody to fit this position. So they went ahead and they signed Luke Farrell. Farrell did not play in a system that was like San Francisco's prior to the 49ers. He was with Jacksonville prior to San Francisco, but they projected that his skill set would fit better into what Kyle Shanahan wants to run than it actually did in 2025. Now, there's a chance that Farrell takes the next step here in 2026, but based on what we've seen over the first year, that's going to be an uphill challenge for the 49ers at tight end. Combine that with the fact that George Kittle is coming off of the torn Achilles, and we're not sure if he's going to be ready for week 1. Combine that with the fact that, Jake Tonjes is a good player, I think a really, really good receiver, but the 49ers probably want to get in on the party of some of this 13 personnel that's starting to happen more often around the league. Matthew Stafford, the Rams quarterback, who benefited so greatly from 13 personnel, which means 3 tight ends in the formation, he pointed out that teams will probably try to emulate the Rams this year. The Rams, who ran 13 personnel way more than anybody else. It turned around their season offensively last year in 2025. But teams might try, but Stafford's main point is that they can try all they want. If they don't have the tight end personnel that the Rams have, they're not going to be successful. You have to have an entire cadre of players at that position who are both threats to catch the football, run routes, catch the football, and run block, so you can keep opposing defenses off balance. The 49ers have so much versatility now at wide receiver since they've added Mike Evans and Christian Kirk, who, by the way, took the trip down to Panama as well. Christian Kirk did, with Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle. The 49ers have adaptability at running back. We look at Kalen Black on top of Christian McCaffrey, who is one of the most adaptable players in NFL history. But Kalen Black, a great pass protector, also somebody who can catch the ball coming out of the backfield as a rookie for the 49ers. The 49ers' own quarterback is adaptable, but the tight end adaptability, there is a bigger question mark there, especially in terms of sheer numbers and depth if the 49ers want to run some heavier tight end personnel packages, especially because George Kittle might not be ready week 1. Now, Kittle's been going to the Stem Cell Institute in Panama for 7 years. Kyle Juszczyk has been going there 10 years. And everyone talks about Kyle Juszczyk as a fullback, and that's what he is listed as. That's what he's paid as. That's unfortunate for Kyle Juszczyk, since the money at that position is significantly lower than the money at the tight end position. But the snap division last year tells a different story. You take about 10 to 15 snaps a year outside wide receiver. I don't even know how many at tight end, but it's got to be over 100, right?
Yeah, so, for sure.
Given the versatility that you guys run specifically with the 49ers, it's kind of interchangeable skill sets, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and now it's gotten to the point where, like, for all of these OTAs, I met with the tight ends because there's just so much overlap, and I can learn from what they're being taught. They can learn from what I've been taught from the running back room with Bobby T. So it really is, merging worlds, and you're seeing so much around the league where, yeah, maybe people don't have fullbacks, but they have tight ends that play that fullback position. So it just makes sense that we're all worked together.
167 snaps lined up at fullback in the backfield for Kyle Juszczyk. 188 snaps as an inline tight end. So more snaps as a tight end than a fullback for Kyle Juszczyk. Then there are 158 snaps that he took as a slot receiver. He was primarily a slot receiver in college at Harvard before he started his NFL career all those years ago. I think 2012, 2013 was his last season in college. So Kyle Juszczyk has been around this league for a while. Shows you that stem cell treatment in Panama, his ability to, it's a physical position that Juszczyk plays. His ability to stay available, stay healthy, he does a really, really good job taking care of his body. Finally, 55 snaps at wide receiver for Kyle Juszczyk. And, of course, 1 snap at quarterback. That was, I believe, a quarterback sneak. He is a designated quarterback sneak guy for the 49ers. Played QB, JV, freshman team. I think it was the JV team in high school. Cloverleaf High School, just outside of Cleveland. So Kyle Juszczyk has some history playing under center as well. But you see the snap division. Fullback actually isn't the primary position for Kyle Juszczyk. Tight end has been the primary position. Juszczyk is going to be a big part of the 49ers' adaptable personnel groups this year. So think about it. Kittle, you obviously want him back as soon as possible if you're the 49ers. Juszczyk in that mix as well. Don't sleep on Jake Tonjes. The Rams have got 4 tight ends in order to run this 13 personnel that they truly can rely on, that are plus players. Maybe the 49ers can get that from Luke Farrell this year. The problem is that if Kittle isn't available at the start of the season, everybody has to slide up a slot. And then all of a sudden, Farrell, who wasn't great for the 49ers last year, well, there's even more pressure on him. And I think that's why people are talking about this tight end position as one of potential expandability for the 49ers. That's why we talk about Charlie Woerner and his run blocking prowess that the 49ers have missed ever since Charlie departed from the team after the 2023 season. In 2024 is Eric Saubert that the 49ers had. He obviously won the Super Bowl last season with the Seattle Seahawks. And then 2025, to complement George Kittle, the 49ers went with Farrell. We'll see how they run things this year. Now, they may not have to be all too tight end dependent this year if they're more wide receiver dependent. That's why we talk about Mike Evans taking the torch from Brandon Aiyuk at the X wide receiver position. That's why we talk about the health of Ricky Pearsall. That's why we talk about Christian Kirk. That's why we talk about Dejon's dribbling. We saw how big Dejon looked in that photo with George Kittle and Brock Purdy and Jordan Watkins golfing in Tennessee. I mean, these are all bodies that I'm talking about who can also help in the perimeter blocking effort. It's one thing that Christian McCaffrey won the ESPY for the best comeback athlete the other day. More good news for the 49ers. But one thing that he could certainly benefit from is better blocking on the perimeter. I've put out so many numbers that show that where the 49ers offense was most efficient last year was in its ability to spring some of those more explosive plays, starting with the run game. And all of the data pointed to the perimeter blocking being the problem. And it makes sense because Brandon Aiyuk abandoned the football team, didn't play a single snap for the 49ers in 2026. It makes sense because Juwan Jennings was playing with 5 or 6 broken ribs. It makes sense because Kendrick Bourne was not a good run blocker. I mean, the 49ers just did not have the personnel that they needed to. It wasn't a coincidence that they finally started running the football decently well the game that George Kittle returned from his initial hamstring injury. He was hurt early on against Seattle in week 1. 49ers struggled to run, do anything really. They didn't even have a 20-yard run until October when Kittle returned from the hamstring injury against the Atlanta Falcons. That was the game where Christian McCaffrey finally delivered the 49ers' first 20-plus yard run of the season. So that has to change. If this offense is going to be the best in the league, as they absolutely have an opportunity to be because their quarterback is so damn good, the 49ers have to have the infrastructure to run more explosively. And that starts with the perimeter blocking, which is at the receiver position and the tight end position as well. We have to think of those in an amorphous fashion. Now, speaking of Purdy, Mr. Elite Everywhere. X-axis here, performance inside the pocket. So that's the horizontal axis, left and right. Y-axis here, performance outside the pocket. So you want to be further to the right and further up. Look who is elite everywhere. Mr. Purdy himself. Every single piece of data that reflects performance has suggested that Brock Purdy is at the top of the league. It is time that we actually start evaluating with facts instead of feelings. A lot of preconceived biases, maybe embarrassment from around the league that executives and teams missed Brock Purdy. Well, they all missed him because he didn't go until pick number 262. But the performance that Purdy has delivered has been undeniable. And, you know, every single stat in football is influenced by a team. And guess what? The 49ers, as I've just demonstrated, did not have a good supporting cast around Brock Purdy last season. Yet he was still elite everywhere. They were highly deficient at wide receiver, ranked last in average separation. Their running game was one of the least explosive in the league. Yet he's still ranked as elite everywhere. So, I mean, it's one of those things where if the 49ers successfully outfit Brock Purdy with receivers who can separate, with receivers who can block, who can actually run the Shanahan system so he's not having to create and run for his life, well, then Brock Purdy will be even better. We've seen him already play at an absolutely historic level, an MVP level in 2023. I'd say higher than MVP level in 2023. That was greatest show on turf level. He's been merely excellent the past 2 seasons, but he can take this up to another level if the 49ers provide more support in 2026. And that all goes back to Brandon Aiyuk. That all goes back to Mike Evans replacing Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk likely done for good in the NFL, as we've been saying for a while. So the 49ers have had to find a new X receiver. Now they need to definitely fortify that tight end position because the one potential weakness for San Francisco health-wise on this offense entering 2026 is that George Kittle spot. Maybe the stem cell stuff will work combined with all the other rehab, and he's going to be back week 1. Either way, I think the 49ers want to make sure that they're stronger at that tight end position depth-wise so they can throw more than the kitchen sink at opposing defenses and help Mr. Elite Everywhere take this the distance. Year 10 for you. You're the longest tenured 49er, and you beat George because he was drafted and you signed in March.
Yep.
Right? So anyway, George said that you guys didn't become close until probably 2018. He was a rookie in 2017. Do you remember your first interactions with him and how that kind of blossomed in the early years?
You know, it's funny, like, I don't know if I remember it specifically, but he always tells this story of I guess we were on the practice field his rookie year, and I remember we were in the I remember a specific play. We were in the red zone. He was running like this fade, and he jumped so high, and he caught this ball with one hand, and I was really impressed. Like, rookie tight end, looked super athletic, could catch the ball, and apparently, I don't remember this part, he came over, and I told him that. I'm like, hey, like, great route. And I didn't even mean anything by it. I'm like, what round did you get drafted? He's like, oh, 5th round. And I guess I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was drafted in the 4th round. And I didn't mean it as like a big bro moment, like, hey, like, cool, like, good job, and I got drafted before you. But he always likes to remind me of that story. Questionable if it really happened, but it might have.
So he thought you were big leaguing him at the very start, and maybe that's why the invite was delayed.
Exactly. That's why there's the delay for our friendship.